Welcome to this episode of Conversation with our professional partners. And this conversation will be with attorney Jamaal James. He's going to answer a question for us. And what we wanted to find out was, Jamaal, what are 5 tips that you can give to buyers, sellers, to make sure that their transaction goes smoothly?
Gotcha. That's a good one. It could probably be 100, but I'm gonna give you all the most important ones.
Okay.
So number one, guys, this goes for everyone. I say disclose everything. You probably heard that when you're going through the loan process about your finances and personal information, but honestly, just disclose everything that needs to be discussed, whether it's finances, whether it's any documentation they told you to release. You don't want to hold anything up because the closing process has at least, if it's buyer and seller, 7 to 8 different people that are part of it. So if something needs to come out, it's gonna come out eventually. So you just want to make sure that you release all information. That's number one. Number two, this kind of goes hand in hand, but it's a little different. Always listen to your realtor. I say that because you're working with really good professionals that really have the best interests of their clients, as you know. But the main thing is, a lot of things aren't going to make sense to you as you're going through it. You're going to say, hey, why do I have to turn this paper in? Or why do I have to be here at this time? Or why is the attorney telling me this? Your realtor is navigating the transaction to make sure that you get the closing as smooth as possible. So even if it feels weird, definitely listen to your realtor. If you have a question before, definitely ask them. You're working with some amazing folks, but you want to make sure that you listen to everything they say, because they really have your best interest in mind to make sure that the closing goes smoothly and there's no delays. So that's a huge one. And number 3, this kind of gets back into the closing process a little bit. But just because you signed that contract doesn't mean you own the house yet. And even at the closing table, when we're going through the documents, number 1 here is don't buy anything. Don't go take out any credit. Don't go buy a car. Don't pull out any credit cards, because the process isn't over yet. And we've kind of discussed it in a couple other posts before too. But the reason why, there's QC checks and things like that, they're going to happen. So it's not official until it's recorded and you have those keys in your hand. So really make sure, and this is mainly for the buyers, don't go out and buy anything. And for the sellers, we're going to give you all some love as well. This kind of goes into disclosing, but marital status. North Carolina, we're a tenants by entirety state, which basically means that if you're married, let me take a step back. If you purchase a property and you were single and now you're going to sell it and you're married, you're like, it's just me. I own this house by myself. It's still so important, guys, to make sure that you let us know that you're married and that you release that marital status, because if you sign off on the documentation and your spouse didn't sign off, well, that person's still out there as an owner, and that could be an issue down the line. So please make sure that you disclose your marital status to us, and don't make any changes during the closing process either, So that's really important for sellers. Number 5, the last one I have, this is also going back, giving the sellers some love. Payoffs. At the beginning of the process, your agent's going to give you our seller information sheet, and what that's going to do is going to request a lot of information. But one of the most important things for us is making sure that we can clear title. Clear title means that we're going to pay off any mortgages that are attached to the property. So if you have a mortgage, when you sat down and you purchased a property at lender financing, it's really important to make sure that you add that to the seller information sheet. That also goes for any lines of credit that you might have had as well. And the reason why is, before we transfer that property, we have to clear title, which means we have to make sure we have those payoffs and that loan is paid before the buyer gets the property. So please make sure, like I said, it kind of goes with disclosing, but make sure that you let us know about those payoffs also.
Okay, good tips. I really appreciate those, because those things can hold up and only hold up, put the brakes on things.
Right.
So you have to be really careful. So you talked about liens against like mechanic liens.
Mechanics liens, deeds of trust, all of those things, judgments, anything that you have that can encumber the property. Because the legal term for it, we want to make sure we have clear title. So when the next person gets it, it's clear there's nothing encumbering the property. Because if something's not paid off, a lot of people don't know this, but in real estate and land transactions, those things stay on the property basically forever and ever. So it's really important to make sure that you disclose those things, and that's good for the buyer also. That's what we're doing in the background to make sure that you're coming to a new home with clear title.
Now this might be just a, if you say, Brigitte, don't ask me this question, we won't ask you this question, but I'm gonna ask you this, you can just tell me what you think.
Yeah.
So I'm seller Susie, and I go and I buy a new HVAC on my credit card for the house. Is it personal? because it's on my credit card, or is it a mechanics because it's attached to the house?
Well, I mean, if you're buying it with your credit card and you're not taking, let's say, like a UCC loan or a financial statement to get onto the property, then technically that is personal.
Okay.
But even with that, I mean, those things aren't cheap. So I would still be leery of making such a big purchase on credit, just in case you have, again, quality control check, or they're looking at your information after the fact. But in that case, yeah, that would be considered personal because it's not financed outside by a different agency or anything like that.
Okay, great. But still, guys, be careful.
Be careful.
And make sure that you take into account the tips that he's giving you. Like he said at the beginning, he could give you 100 tips. So I asked him for 5, tips that he can provide. So make sure that you're doing all the things that are necessary so that your closing can be smooth.
That's right. And ask questions. Like I said, even if you're questioning if you should do something or not, always disclose to your realtor, listen to your realtor, but most importantly, if there's something you feel funny about, ask your realtor, because they're the professionals and y'all know what we need to do to get this deal closed out.
Yeah, great. All right, until next time. Really appreciate it.
Definitely.
Yep. And you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll put their contact information in the comment section so that you can reach out and ask any questions that you might have. Talk to you soon.